Yo guys, sorry you already know that today we're back playing some more Raging Loop. We still have more extra stories to read. Last time we read the Blockhead versus the final boss. Now we are going to read Writer versus Mystery Station. This one has no comedy in it apparently. This is all horror, so I hope you're ready to be scared. But our intrinsic journalist eventually finds a mystery she didn't ask for. Ooh, can the wise boy save her from the heretical land illuminated by the light of madness? Sure. Okay, so this is, what's her face? Mamiya? Okay, that's fun. It seems like each of these stories follows a different person, so let's see what's going on with this one. Yes, this is Jose. Mamiya, please talk to you again. Did something happen? Well, I do read the newspapers, but I just wouldn't like it, if there was something I couldn't understand from the outside. Oh, good to know. Huh? Well, that happens a lot. I used what I had stocked up, so I didn't end up getting dropped as a contributor. So why'd you call me, huh? I'm surprised you remember that. I used to write about that. Oh, don't worry. I actually do know something, like that. In fact, I can introduce you to the seminars I went to. But are you sure? It's in the countryside, and it's not a very prestigious college. It's public, though, so it's at least cheap. Okay, I can do it if you're fine with me. Oh, no need for that. It's just an extra. I'll email you the exact date. Oh, that won't work. Can you wait until tomorrow? I'll write you again. Can I have your phone number? It's not on here. Alright, 85. I wrote down the number. She looked down at the clock. She was almost running late, so she switched gears. Repeating the number, she skillfully avoided the pedestrians and approached the station. Okay, I understand. Hello, excuse me. As she ended the call, she, the freelance writer Hisako Mamiya, put her phone in her bag and ran. She was on the move. She had to participate in a press conference regarding a contamination caused by a certain food company. She normally worked behind a desk, so this day was special in that it was mostly field work. Hisako would have to worry about the content of the call later. But wow, it's so damn hot. It was July. The Tokyo heat was reminiscent of the tropics, and no one could blame her for cursing about it. A few hours later, she was near Shinjuku Station. Hisako was slowly staggering inside. The press conference was utter chaos. The company's PR were making excuses while newspaper reporters were barraging them with questions. Barraging them with questions. To Hisako, that wasn't a bad thing, since she could use the very situation for a humorous article. However, the other freelance journalists invited her to drink and dragged her around until it was late at night. All of them had grudges against newspaper and TV journalists, so they had a good time complaining about them. Hisako, however, had been very uncomfortable throughout the whole thing. Sorry, I don't actually hate them that much. I don't belong here. Hisako was a journalist, but at the same time, she was an entertainment writer, and she was fully aware of that. She was the type to reveal new info just so the others could have fun. That got her some donations, so this was another part of her work to her. Her bride as a journalist didn't go beyond not writing lies and contacting the primary source herself. The other journalists seemed to be more about exposing the truth and defeating the media, and Hisako couldn't relate to that. Wasn't that just a facade? The desire to see things you shouldn't, the desire to laugh at others' misfortune, the desire to gain advantage by knowing things no one else knew, the desire to take the moral high ground. Such desires were common to mankind, and wasn't journalism just a trade to present such products to the masses? They already violated laws and social norms to get new info. Didn't they have to put their lives on the line for their trade and work for their customers? If something wasn't going well, wasn't it because they weren't doing their jobs right? Right back at me, I suppose. Forcing a self-deprecating smile, she drank some of her shochu, and by the time it was time to leave, she'd emptied the whole bottle. With some of the others worrying about her, she parted ways with them. I'm okay. This wasn't enough for her to lose consciousness or concentration. The only problem was that she didn't get to enjoy the floaty, languid feeling alcohol gave. Hisako hadn't enjoyed a good night out drinking for a while. She was so busy she had to refuse invites from her old friends and often ended up having to go to gatherings she didn't enjoy. What kind of life was this? She chuckled to herself at that thought, but then pushed it aside. It was a dangerous thought to have when drunk. I don't have much time. Shinjuku Station was like a maze. Making it to the last train would be a challenge. If she didn't make it in time, she'd have to stay in the station. Hisako had tough nerves, but even she was averse to the idea of sleeping drunk in the station. Yeah, that doesn't sound fun. I gotta hurry. She remembered that there were lots of urban legends surrounding Shinjuku Station. There could be something inhuman among the passerby. There could be a cenotaph under the Chua line. I don't know what a cenotaph is, and I'm scared to find out what one might be. There could be routes that took you somewhere you couldn't return from. Drunk as she was, she could maybe see one or two things she couldn't see normally. I'd love to see something. However, she passed the ticket barrier, passed the platform, and got on the final train without encountering anything. I'm so tired. With all the desk work she had to do, unless she was doing interviews, she could hardly go outside. And this was taken up by the meeting with editors from a magazine company, participation in the press conference, and the drinking party. Even between all that, she'd taken out her mini laptop, made some drafts for the stricter deadlines, and made a few calls. It was a productive day, even by her standards, but she'd have to spend all of tomorrow locked up in her room again. I'm not sure if I'm going about this right. No matter how much she worked, her life didn't become any easier. It was a common problem, but it was also true that many such people often wasted their money on momentary pleasures, such as alcohol or girls. She considered that maybe her payments would actually increase if she stopped considering her future and just lived as she wanted. Being on the verge of 30 made her somewhat uneasy. She casually opened her phone and found out that she had over a dozen calls for each day. The job was so hard, yet the pay was so low. Text is so cheap. She understood that there had to be a my before that, but she still couldn't stop herself from complaining. If she couldn't gain money, she wanted to at least have an experience that you couldn't buy with money. In that sense, the incident in Fujiyoshi, where she was attacked by locals wearing wolf clothing, was quite special. However, it was dangerous, and she didn't earn any money for it, so it was a loss overall. Incidentally, that was the first time she'd encountered someone who claimed to be a fan of her work. Haruaki Fusaishi. Due to the danger he put her through, she wanted to know more about what happened there. They were still in touch via email, and she often tried to drag him in for an interview, but he always put it off, saying something about deadlines. He claimed to be a college or grad student. Was he studying a very difficult subject? It should have been summer break right now, so he should have had time, but it was now Hisako's turn to be busy. The circumstances weren't favorable, though she'd have some time after she'd crossed this mountain, so she had to plan her next job, whether or not it involved Haruaki. Where should I go next? I imagine weird countryside places should have some good stories for me. Hisako was always a curious person. She was born in Shikaku and often interacted with stories of the 88 temples, Gyobu Tanuki, and any other mythical cultural aspects. She'd taken up folkloristics in a college near her home. It was very interesting, and she could study it with passion. However, she never had the mythical encounter she'd always hoped for. She then went on to investigate urban legends and modern paranormal encounters. She even moved to Tokyo because she wanted to unravel the darkness of the city. She then got a job with a small magazine and was put in charge of the occult column, but it didn't do well and went out of business in less than a year. Hisako even felt that the sudden state of unemployment was the most paranormal moment in her life. She couldn't decide where to work next, was writing articles as if it were a part-time job, and eventually ended up freelancing. She was happy that she could feed herself, but she realized that this wouldn't keep going forever. Perhaps getting married would make her future more stable, but I have no one. The people in the publishing and magazine companies were either other women or had families, while her old friends from her homeland were already getting married. She wasn't really interested in the other journalists, especially after that drinking party. If only Hashimoto-san wasn't married. Yuta Hashimoto, the cameraman she briefly worked with, was someone she greatly respected. He was a man of character, skill, and always looked at things with the eyes of a professional. The little consolation after party they had after the Fujiyoshi trip was actually the first time in a while she'd enjoyed drinking with someone. She was so drunk she even aired her complaints about the other journalist. He responded with a flat expression. I believe that's because you're smart and have a conscience. If you ask me, I believe that about 60 to 70% of people live without thinking whether something is right or wrong. Such people need justice to live without causing problems to society, the obvious ones at least. The same applies to journalism. The flag of justice isn't always wait for self-satisfaction or pretense. The world is full of people who are willing to do terrible things the moment they gave up on being just. That's why I believe it's necessary, even if, as you said, it often sounds hypocritical. Even if some ideals seemed empty, losing them could bring about an endless hell. Hisako didn't know if that was Yudai's own take, or if he was just playing along with her subculture-like idea. But she did feel that he was right. I wonder if there's another man as tolerant, considerate, and gentlemanly as him. Though she'd have liked someone less horizontally challenged. Wow, okay. Shouldn't mind fatter, slimmer people, but someone on Yudai's level was bound to cause physical trouble. I mean, that would be... I mean, he's, like, large. It isn't even just like, oh, you're fat. It's like, that dude is large. It's crazy. In various situations. Okay. When she was little, Misaka was daddy's girl, and so far, all the men she dated were older than her. She was entirely aware of her own Electra complex, and that it might have warped her eye for men. What is an Electra complex? Is that just someone who dates older men? Is that just because of, like, context clues from the previous sentence, or is that a complete different thing? I've never heard that before. What am I thinking? The inside of the train was almost completely silent. There were some other people in the car, but they were all sleeping on the seats. Many of them were as drunk as she was. She herself was half asleep too. Whenever she closed her eyes, her thoughts became a mess, and she almost leaked saliva from her mouth. But I'm not completely asleep. It was a strange sensation. She was certain that she wasn't having a dream, but was somewhere between waking and sleep. Perhaps this feeling itself had been given by a dream. A drunk person's senses had no stability or certainty. She couldn't sense the passage of time. She couldn't hear anything. She couldn't feel the shaking of the train. Drowsy as she was, she did notice how the train stopped and a female passenger got off into the darkness outside. Okay. Hisako's house was in Kawagoe. I've never heard of that before. It was a 50-minute train ride away from Shinjuku, and then 10 minutes on foot. She wouldn't know how to respond if someone asked her whether it was a good spot. There were far more potato fields than residences there, so it was pretty dark out due to lack of streetlights. The place Hisako was renting was at the edge of such an area. The only reason she took it was the cheap rent and the fact that the area reminded her of her homeland. The dark night road was nearly empty. Of course, she'd never encountered anything paranormal in this path. All you have here are perverts. The number of them had increased recently, and there were many signs warning about them. Apparently, they were the types to expose themselves to women, but as long as they weren't violent, they weren't a problem for Hisako. That sucks, and that's uncomfortable. Is that still, like, a thing? I feel like I've heard that, there's not really any, like, laws against, like, specifically, like, men being, like, perverts in public. It's, like, you can kind of publicly shame them, but, like, a lot of times, like, they don't get arrested for doing, like, really decent stuff. I'm not sure how accurate that is to now, but I feel like I've heard that. And so you can imagine that, like, it's not even, like, sexual crimes, but, like, sexual, like, indecency or whatever is, like, a big thing that happens in Japan, I think. I might be a little bit wrong, or that might be outdated, but I would not be surprised if it wasn't. I'm not a little girl anymore. But I just bring that up because I think that would explain why it's just like, oh, you know, this is pervert street where dudes just expose themselves like that. You know, in somewhere like America, it's just like that's, you know, people would be getting like arrested for stuff like that. But in Japan, that's probably not happening, especially when this game came out like 10 years ago or something like that. Maybe, yeah, whatever. Anyway, that thought made her realize that she was aging, which only made her more depressed. The fact that the most unusual thing she could encounter after moving to the city were just some perverts made her feel really strange. She noticed someone walking in front of her. You can see lots of people walking out at night in the heart of the city, but that was pretty rare here. Rare enough for it to be unusual. Is that a pervert? Probably not. She felt that she just imagined one into reality. No one else was here, and it looked like a man. It was easy to see him as suspicious. Normally, she'd have been more alert and have a good sense to switch to the other side of the road. However, she was more drunk than she'd realized. Maybe I can make an article out of this. Okay, out of a man walking in front of you? A pervert's diet, Garlig's effectiveness in fending all perverts. Thinking of those and other more indecent headlines, she took out her notepad. She was actually planning to interview the pervert. Oh my gosh. Hisako walked up to and looked at him. He had luggage with him. Was he planning to pull something out? He wasn't wearing a coat. The man was wearing normal summertime clothing, and he was somewhat familiar. Oh! Hey, what's up? That's a nice shirt. I like that. Ha, no way. That was her line. Mamiya-san, the writer? Why are you here? That was her line too. Yasunaga Oribe-kun? Yes. She suddenly remembered the call. She'd been contacted by Kaori Oribe, the woman in charge of the dining hall in Yasumizu, and someone she wanted to interview on May. In May? On May? I feel like it should be in May. The lady called to ask for something. Her son had come to Tokyo to visit colleges, but neither she nor him knew any good destination, so she wondered if Hisako could help with that. When she was interviewing Kaori about the Shishinare, Hisako had mentioned that she was studying folkloristics before. Apparently her son had become interested in that recently. College students who knew what they wanted to learn before they even enrolled were rare, so any seminars would welcome passionate and skilled volunteers. This afternoon, they talked on the phone about it, agreeing on a new time. She was so busy that she'd missed most of the details, but Hisako was certain that she hadn't been told that the boy had already arrived in Tokyo. Her address wasn't on the business card she'd given them, and looking at his reaction, this meeting was surely just a coincidence. Huh? You're staying nearby? That was the plan. What? You took a place in such an inconvenient half-rural area? She could understand if it was closer to the metropolitan area. There were colleges there. Anyway, she didn't know of any local places where one could properly stay. Well, Takamini's, my acquaintance's family, go out to work in this area, so I asked them to take me in. Hisako could understand that. The local rent prices were low, and there was a lot of industry and agriculture here. I see, what a coincidence. But why are you walking around at night? I just can't get there. Huh? I checked a few places, but I couldn't get there, so I gave up and decided to just wander around. The whole night? Yes. Whoa, hold on. What kind of thinking was that? It seemed like an intelligence sort back in Yasumizu. Was that a misunderstanding? You're planning to pull an all-nighter right before going to college? You'll barely be alive. I got some sleep on the bus here, and I'm pretty good at pulling all-nighters. But you need a place where you can relax, right? Ideally, yes. You won't see trains or taxis this late. Hey, couldn't you have secured something earlier? You're in the city. You can easily find a place to stay. I don't have the money. Then, you have late-night karaoke, video stores. Wait, you're too young for those. A diner? I'll walk around some colleges for 3 days starting tomorrow, but all I have is the money for train and food. How much are we talking? I have 500 yen. Was that a field trip to him? I'd intended to eat at Takamini's parents' place, but I can't get bread for 100 yen. I'll get by. Or maybe you can't. I think I misread that. No, you won't. And even if you can handle one all-nighter, you won't have another one. You don't have the money to get a place. That's true. I might have to use my free time to search for a place to sleep, like in a park or under a bridge. He was severely lacking in street smarts. Listen, I know you're here on a plain college tour, but your planning leaves no room for failure. Especially monetarily. You need money to get by, so have some on you at all times. Well, we're really poor. Hisako didn't know what to say. She could tell that the settlement was special in that regard. Even bringing one person to Tokyo was a great expense to their part. When did you intend to visit the college I would introduce you to? What? Introduce? Huh? You weren't told? Your mother called me around noon today. She asked if I could introduce you to folkloristic seminars, and I said I could, but needed some time. Folkloristics? Was that your subject? Yes, I told that to Kaori Oribe-san when we chatted. Mom, you really didn't have to... What? Well, it was my first time outside on my own, so she was really, really worried. I'm actually thinking of exploring both law departments as well as humanities subjects along those lines. Like archaeology and cultural anthropology? Yes, I've been interested in that recently. When I told that to Mom, she was completely for it, and that's what led to it. She must have called you after remembering your conversation with her. Sorry. Hey, it's no trouble, really. But how did she intend to help us meet if you're already here? She doesn't think things through sometimes. A true parent-child relationship. Everything made sense to her now, but she didn't say it. Anyway, wandering around at night is a no-no. There are perverts in this area. They might think you are one and report you. What? Would that really happen? Don't underestimate the city. I guess I have no choice. Come to my place. Huh? It's messy, but it's better than sleeping outside. Come on, it's right here. But I can't. You also can't stay outside. Just come with me. Mamiya-san, are you drunk? I'm not. You are. She was. I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure she still is. But even if she wasn't, she would have surely done the same thing. She was optimistic and proactive. She would act before she had a chance to be embarrassed about it and worry about it later. That was what the freelance writer, Kyuke Hosei, was like at the core. Well, aren't you lucky? Imagine how troubled you'd be if we didn't run into each other. I'm troubled right now. And why? I'll go to the bathroom or something. No, don't. Let me clean it up first. Before that, I gotta take this tight off there. I'm not looking, I'm not. Hisako could remember fooling around like that, but then it all went blank. She woke up with sunlight in her eyes, her head felt heavy. It wasn't bad enough to be a hangover, but it wasn't pleasant. She was wearing her indoor clothes, and there were other clothes and other things littered all about, but she didn't mind it. Where was he? She looked around her 12 tatami-sized room, and found a note on the small table next to the wall. It was a message written in steady handwriting. It's time, so I'm leaving now. Thank you for the phone. I'll figure out how to use it and contact you when I have free time. Thank you so much for looking after me, too. Also, I didn't see anything yesterday. Honest. Okay. She remembered that she lended him one of her personal phones. She had several, some for work, some for herself. He'd probably never used one before, but she was sure he would get by. It wasn't hard to begin with, and it had numbers of her other phones, so there'd be no problems as long as he figured them out. Though he was the type to spend the night outside if he couldn't find a place, so he could easily make some strange misunderstandings. What if he tried to put money in it, or forgot to charge it? He's not that stupid. Hisako figured that it would all work out. Alright, time for work. She fired herself up and stood up. She had even more work than before, after all. They'd agreed that he'd come back once he was done for the day. No matter what he did here, he couldn't get far without money. She would clean up the place before he returned. In the end, Hisako couldn't clean up the bathroom or bath last night, and she could only hope he didn't see them. Also, when looking at it realistically, she didn't find a reason to give him money to stay and eat at a hotel or something. She had no obligation to do that, and if she gave him too much money, he'd probably be so humbled that it would be painful for her. She already had him stay over once. Another day wouldn't hurt. He was a man, sure, but he was like a dozen years younger than her. If he was the sort to make some sort of mistake, he would have surely made it last night. Was it a good idea to call his mother as proof that there was nothing special happening here? She figured she would do it when he was around. If he was to do over again, she figured she had to prepare food for him. What though? Curry? Steak? Fried food? 17-year-old had to be gluttonous, so the food had to be something substantial. Hehehe. Or maybe something weird yet extremely delicious. It was time for her to show off her knowledge as a critic of strange foods. Hisako would leave the boy awestruck with her excessive knowledge of ingredients and cooking methods. That meant that this was basically part of the job. Nothing personal. It would surely take more time and effort than just ordering something, but this was a matter of initiative. With that decided, she had to open up her afternoon for shopping, washing, and utensil preparation. Hisako had 3 articles to write today. It was 9 right now. She'd overslept. 3 articles in 3 hours. Was that a joke? However, instead of giving up then and there, she removed the makeup that had been on her since yesterday and faced her desk without even changing into something. She felt like she could do it. It worked out. After breaking her speed record, writing up the 3 articles, she faxed and mailed them to the clients. One was signed off on instantly, while 2 needed some minor changes, which she'd done in no time. She wrote these out really fast, but that didn't damage the quality. In fact, one company even praised her. The text has more oomph to it. Did something good happen? Good. Hisako herself was well aware that she was having fun right now. Well, it's been years since I made food for someone else. She'd shown her skill at the drinking parties she'd had with the girls in her college years, and she treated her previous partners to handmade food. But once she became employed, she no longer had time for any of that. She might have been more desperate for human contact than she realized. But to work 3 times faster because of some rice, what kind of machine does that? Or does this say more about how lazy I was all the time? Of course I wouldn't make more money like that. Did that mean that all her problems would be solved if she got married and made food for her hubby every day? That realization made her jump to her feet and sigh. She had no good person for that role after all. Oh well. With that, she now had half a day off, so she began cleaning and thinking of the menu. Come 2 o'clock, she put on her makeup and left. As she locked the door, the key shone under the sun within the clear sky. The weather was nice. Yasunaga hadn't contacted her yet. It could have been simply that he was busy, or because he actually didn't know how to use the phone. Even so, he should have been able to come back without a problem. A mountain child's sense of direction had to be good, surely. Thinking that, Hisako went to the station. She passed a small station that echoed the announcements and entered an old-looking car of a dull silver color. It wasn't the morning or evening rush hour, so there were few people both on the train and on the platform. She casually sat down and rested. Since she needed both rare ingredients and kitchen utensils, she decided to go to the supermarket in the inner city. Hisako even made a note of what to get. If she finished within an hour, she was bound to return before the rush. She'd spend the next 40 minutes doing nothing. If only it was always like this. She would have loved to live her life spending half of her days working and half doing household activities. She enjoyed them. And she would have loved to have a gentle, reliable older man at her side to spend such days with. She remembered the faces of her previous partners. One was a senpai in her college club, one was a young employee in a gastropub where she'd been a part-timer, and one was a senpai in her study department. The reason for breaking up was always the same. The man became bored of her. She could understand why. She wasn't the type of person a man would look for in a younger woman. She wasn't cute, was crude, had stern eyes, and was subculture-focused. Dating her for a while was enjoyable, but a lifetime for her was too much. It was like her current job, trying out delicacies. She knew that she'd messed up when picking her preferred kind of man. She would have probably fared better with someone the same age or younger. But, wasn't it too late to struggle on that front? Oh no, I'm having so much fun that my mind's going where it shouldn't. Yes, so late. I mean, she's what? In her 30s at most? I guess your life's basically over at that point. Oh gosh. Hisako decided to sleep for a bit. She'd been so energetic, this morning that it was coming back to bite her. It could have been the alcohol too, so she figured she had to rest a bit. And if she slept, she wouldn't have to think about the ghosts of the past. So far, she hadn't seen a single one of her ex-boyfriends in her dreams, and she wondered what it said about her. Thinking such familiar things, she closed her eyes. Strange, she's not answering. Surrounded by other visitors, Yasunaga was standing on the campus of one of the colleges he was visiting. He went through 2 colleges and properly participated in a total of 4 relevant events, such as open campus and simulated enrollment. It was rare for Yasunaga's own plans to fail. In that sense, this one was particularly troublesome. The fact that he couldn't get to Takumi Muro's family's home was one such failure. He couldn't find the residence he was told about, no matter how hard he looked. One moment he thought he was walking around, only to come out on a completely unfamiliar path. He asked the locals for directions, but no matter how well he followed them, he just gotten more and more lost. He failed to find any public phones, so he couldn't even call to ask for someone's help. When it became dark, he'd given up on trying to get there and arrived at the road he walked by in the morning. He couldn't understand what was up. Was it because the town was unfamiliar to him? Was that really it? It wasn't a coincidence. There was intent behind this. I feel like I've had these sensations way more often since that time. That time was a strange incident in which God appeared in Yasumizu. Even now he couldn't help but believe that it was all done by human hands. After all, there was no God in this world who would send the poor residents of Yasumizu on a trip to Atami. There are many mysteries such as Wolf Guy suicide or the collapse of the head families, but it was clear that there was some sort of conspiracy. And going on the trip had protected them from its effects. They'd been saved by the clearly human yet godlike person. When they come back, everyone in Kama Fujiyoshi was shocked. There'd been a mist, yet everyone was okay. Not only that, but they came back on a limousine bus. Whatever had happened there, life in Fujiyoshi had become easier since then. You could vaguely feel that their encounter with God was related to the fall of the village heads and was a turning point for everyone there. The difference in school life was the most striking. The students related to the village heads had somehow vanished, and some had become friendlier with them. I didn't know how to respond when they asked me about the mist and what I saw there. He always fell silent when asked, while Chikamochi joked around and Haru calmly dismissed everyone. But it wasn't just the people that had changed. He could feel something else. The thing that had been oppressing them had vanished, and there was now someone else who watched over them instead. He could feel it even now when he was far away from Fujiyoshi. It wasn't unpleasant. He felt like he could keep calm and live with confidence. Getting lost is still a problem, though. Or maybe I could just go wild and sleep outside. I feel like I wasn't really myself last night. Was the Mountain God telling him to give up on the exams in return? Haru had sent him off with a smile, so he really didn't think that was the case. She even showed him a charm to keep him safe along the way and help him succeed in his studies. It was still in his bag, and he felt like it would bring him luck. Maybe it's what helped me run into Mamiya-san. It was the fact that he couldn't have bumped into her if he hadn't been wandering outside that late. Hisako Mamiya-san. She was an outsider to the isolated settlement of Yasumizu, and the first impression she gave off was that of a refined city lady. It was hard to become like her by just reading textbooks. Chemi Serizawa had gone to college in the city and also returned, so refined that he could hardly recognize her. As one who had feelings for her, he found it both charming and unfortunate. After all, he'd fallen for the animalistic Chemi he'd known since childhood. Even if that was still there, the people, especially the men she'd met outside, had slowly changed her. By the way, when they returned from the Atami trip and she'd returned to college, she'd laughed and said she would go meet God. She probably knew that God, and that smile could only mean that she... Hold it, stop, it's time to give up. Chemi had left Yasumizu and become free. Even if it was far away from him and made him feel lonely, it was something to be glad about. He had to follow her in her footsteps and become free himself. Switching gears, Yasunaga took out the phone again, and he called the addresses, me deadlines, and me connections. It just continued to ring and no one picked up. Was she asleep? It was already afternoon, even if it wasn't too far off. The rush in the morning had been awful. He could get out somehow, but the whole place would be packed again when it was time to return. He knew where he had to get off, but he wanted to avoid missing his stop and being unable to pay for travel again. He had to prioritize contacting Hisako. Upon deciding that, Yasunaga began killing time. I asked him where I want to go, after all. Where are you going? It's so huge! After walking around for about 20 minutes, Yasunaga entered a college library. The old wooden interior was lined with countless bookshelves, and besides the sound of the visitors turning pages, the place was completely quiet. According to the documents, this was the largest assortment of books in the area. Apparently, only school employees and students could borrow books, but everyone could hang around and read, so it was a perfect place to kill time. You could also use one of the dozens of computers to search for the right book, or just find out more. Yasunaga knew TVs, but he never touched a computer. He figured he would need it in the future, though, so he certainly wanted to touch them. Also, a book from the hands-on learning experience left him intrigued, so he wanted to know more about it. It was a textbook about ruin excavation. It's surprisingly expensive, so it's best to just read it in a place like this. Before, he wanted to become a lawyer to earn lots of money for his mother, but he'd been changing recently. His mother, Kaori Oribe, and Takumi Muro had begun to seriously consider getting married. She'd probably start to enjoy living in Yasumizu a lot more than before. Thus, she insisted that Yasunaga and his brother do whatever they wanted. About a month ago, Kinosuke Nosato, who'd left Fujiyoshi, had sent Yasunaga a sealed envelope. Inside, there was a letter and a photo of God's mask. He wrote that he had the thing with him, but if Yasumizu wanted to prepare a proper place for it, he would return it to them. The Nosato document said that a certain someone had dug it up from Yasumizu. Kinosuke had no affinity for this kind of thing himself, but if Yasunaga was interested, he would contact his family and have them help him. Yasunaga had been captivated by the possibilities the letter provided, as well as the shape of the mysterious mask displayed in the photo. He knew that studies were about looking for reasons and results. If there was a reason, there was a result, so by knowing the reason, you could know the result, and by analyzing the result, you could arrive at this reason. What a sentence. As results and reasons switch places, things that had and didn't have a shape would switch places and create unexpected value. Yasunaga found this extremely interesting. That was why he enjoyed learning and why results followed him. Through the mock exams, he found out that he could easily be top of his class in college. The path of a lawyer was open to him. However, he was enchanted by the wolf mask. He wanted to know who made it and why, and the reasons why it had so many similarities to the Mountain Festival wolf costumes and face cloths. What methods would be involved in finding that out? Such questions made him extremely excited. This reminded him that Hisako had said she would recommend him to folkloristic seminars. If he chose to go there, Hisako would become his senpai. He had a few more questions about it, so he would stay at her place again. He wasn't sure if she'd allow that, but he wanted to talk. Last night, she fallen asleep in an indecent position, and he couldn't even ask her anything. You remember how she turned around and... Stop it. He shook the memory off. It was best to act like he hadn't seen anything. Yasunaga was quite perplexed by the difference between her usual self and her when she was drunk. How old is she? She didn't seem older than him, but still far from old. As he thought such things, he realized something. He might have a thing for unprincipled older ladies. Oh, no. No, that's just the worst. He failed to get Chiemi, so he would go for Hisako. That would be too simple, straightforward, and hasty. Instead, he focused on the library. He tried calling her on the phone again, but the result was the same. Yasunaga sighed, put the phone away, and entered the library. She regained consciousness, but couldn't properly process reality yet. On the surface, it looked like everything was normal. She couldn't realize that there was no conformity in her awareness, and that something was really off. Ooh? It was night. Outside the train car was pure darkness, and the lights inside only seemed to emphasize it. Hisako Mamiya instantly assumed that she was riding on a late-night train, returning from work that tired her so much she'd fallen asleep on the ride. She clung to that story for a few seconds, but as her thoughts became more clear, she became more pale. Uh-oh. Had she slept too long? Had she been sleeping here for a whole few hours? What happened to Yasunaga Oribe? She abandoned the boy who needed her help. What a horrible thing to do. Hisako quickly dug into her bag. The two phones she had both said it was 4 minutes... Sorry. The two phones she had both said it was 4 minutes past midnight, and that there were no missed calls or texts. Oh, this is weird. Not only that, but both of them had said that they were out of service range. Out of range? On a train line? She then realized another thing. This wasn't a loop line. If she'd overslept, she would have been awakened and kicked out. Even if that didn't happen, she would have been caught up in the rush. No way she could have kept sleeping then. In that case, what was happening here? She naturally assumed the reverse, i.e. that her meeting with Yasunaga was just a dream. She gotten drunk, got on the last train, and that was when reality ended. She began having a dream where she met Yasunaga Oribe and let him stay over. That wouldn't explain everything. She didn't have her personal phone with her. Unless she dropped it somewhere, she'd lended it to Yasunaga. Then there was the shopping list she made. It was hard to argue that she'd made it while sleeping. She definitely got on a daytime train and had somehow arrived here. A train with no one else but her. Something wasn't right. Hisako finally realized that she was in an unnatural situation. Ooh. Basically, something paranormal. Unlike a certain swindling author, when faced with the paranormal, normal people felt only fear. It's finally happened, huh? She licked her lips. Hisako had been dreaming of seeing something paranormal her whole life. Even though she knew by now that there were always just people behind the curtain, she'd still chase the darkness. And this time, she finally got what she wanted. She'd been waiting for this for long, and she was ready. I feel like that should be like she's been waiting for this for so long, and she was ready. She prepared and put up a front. It was time for her to show off her skills as an ex-occult writer. She stood up. Her car was the fourth, the same as when she gotten on. It looked like a normal train, if you ignore that there were no other passengers. Hisako moved through the car and opened the door. It was a soft curtain wriggling at the connection, and it seemed to visualize the loud but organized sounds and vibrations. The train was still running. To the third car, all was the same. To the second car, ooh, all was the same, but that does not look the same. All was the same. The train was still running. To the first car. All was the same. But we're getting red flashes. All was the same. The train was still running. All was the same. All was the same. All was the same. The first car was the front. Hisako covered her mouth. Even though she hadn't eaten much since this morning, she was hungry. In fact, she felt an intense urge to vomit. As she went onward, she became aware that there was some sort of anomaly that affected the nervous system. Her thoughts became dull, and her paralyzed sense of danger made her unable to realize it. Her physical condition was just getting worse and worse. Urge to vomit, headache. She finally realized that something was even more wrong than she thought. Lack of oxygen? Odorless gas? The journalist, who looked into cases of carbon-based suicide, had told her that carbon monoxide poisoning made people fall asleep and just die. This is bad. There had to be someone at the front. The train wouldn't be moving otherwise. Hoping for help, Hisako staggered over ahead. She felt like she could fall at the slightest curve. How long would this train keep going forward? Upon arriving at the front, she looked through the window into the conductor's seat. Is there anybody there? There was no one there, yeah. Or rather, she couldn't perceive it. The part of the scenery through the window where the driver should be seemed to be cut out. She couldn't see it, as if she was actually blind at just that part. Though it didn't look like there was something there, it was probably worse. That place itself just didn't exist. Basically, it was a space that rejected the laws of the physical world. Something fatal for human perception. She quickly looked away, her vision returned, but... oh no. The car wasn't the same as before. It looked like it had been left underwater for half a century. There was rust, tears, and rot everywhere. The doors were dirty, the seats were torn, the walls had eroded, and the windows were covered in dirt. However, none of that could compare to the advertisements hanging here and there. After all, they weren't in Japanese. What? It wasn't the alphabet or Hangul either, nor was it Hebrew or Arabic either. The text seemed like warped, heretical, evil hieroglyphs that couldn't have been created by a human hand. It made her realize that she'd been seeing them for a while, but only found them suspicious now. No. No! Hisako's courage was quickly overwhelmed by fear and panic. Those who only knew wild beasts from zoos didn't know the fear of being inside those cages. The fear filling her throat and crawling up her skin was just too great to resist. However, she could overcome it, just enough to create a goal for herself. Escape. She had to get out. With only that thought in mind, she closed in on the nearby door. Above her, there was a rusty metallic cover hiding an emergency lever. The instructions on it were written in the same cryptic hieroglyphs, so she looked away. For a moment, she almost felt like they extended like tentacles and wrapped around her fingers. She forcefully opened the cover, moaning because of the tearing pain in her hand, and pulled the rusty lever. There was an alarm. She knew it was because of what she did, but she felt like it was a scream of the train-shaped yokai. With a high-pitched, wet, annoying, lowly, belittling, insulting sound, the train began to slow down. Oh, gosh. Release a train broadcast? Yeah. Alright, this might be the one time where it might be worth, I haven't done this in a while. Come on, other voices. It's your time to speak. I guess I should look at the log just to see what we're dealing with here. Whoa. Creepy. It was a male voice. It sounded somewhat monotone and sleepy, just like the train. She couldn't understand a word of what it said. Unable to bear it, she finally vomited, but even then, she didn't let go of the emergency lever. Her fist turned pale from how hard she held it. Hurry. Hurry up and stop. Hoping for just that, she directed her cloudy eyes into the darkness outside, where she saw a white, square, luminous object. It was a station name. A station name in the Japanese language. It was there for just a moment, but she read it. The next moment, the train shook. Hisako almost fell, and the train stopped. The door opened up. Upon realizing that, she noticed that the other train cars were as clean as she remembered. But she couldn't trust her senses anymore. Breathing raggedly, she made her way outside. The voice from before followed her. Emergency stop at Kisaragi Station. That was close. She couldn't see the outside well, but she realized that only a small part of the first car was next to the platform. If she'd walked out from any other car, she would have fallen on the tracks. Feeling hard concrete on her knees, she tried to stabilize her breathing, which was when her surroundings became dark. Huh? The bright lights from the train had vanished. She turned around and saw the train, lying there like the corpse of a large beast, with its jaws hanging open. It still made some mechanical sounds, but she felt like it would fall completely silent soon, like a cadaver. She didn't know why the train had to shut down right after an emergency stop. She didn't even know if there was a reason. Once her breathing stabilized, she stood up. There were no light sources anywhere. She concluded that this was a platform because of the signs she'd seen from inside. Ignoring that, this was just a concrete ramp. Even empty stations had night lights. What was this place? Where am I? She already had info, however. The station's name was Kisaragi, and it was in hiragana. It fit the Japanese announcement she heard. Kisaragi wasn't a station she knew. It still didn't look like a proper train platform, but if it wasn't that, then what? I guess there's no point considering such things when it comes to the paranormal. But she quickly remembered that there was no guarantee that this was supernatural. Looking back at all the phenomena so far, it was likely that this was just an illusion. This was some station late at night, and she was just incapable of acknowledging anyone else here. However, she had to act based on what her eyes told her. All the horror characters who thought they went insane were fated to die. She needed light, so she took out her phone. When she did so, something made her widen her eyes. The battery was almost empty. How? It could last 2 days without charging, and it was relatively new. It could be just that too much time has passed, but no. She concluded upon looking at the other phone, it ran out of battery faster, but it somehow had more than the other. And both of them were out of service range. She thought she had escaped trouble when she left the train, but that idea was shallow. Maybe it would have been better to just stay in the fourth car? Or maybe I escaped the trouble but ended up stuck in some abandoned line in the mountains? It was best to believe that something was wrong, but it was best to avoid extreme assumptions. She figured she had to look around a bit more. She took the phone with more battery left and lifted it up. The weak light illuminated the platform and a rusty fence. There was nothing but a dense hedge beyond it, and there was no way to tell what was further. She directed the light up. There was a roof, a really small one, like ones used in bus stops. It was also aged, but not as much as a train. There had been a schedule in the support here, but it was torn off apparently. She looked at the text and numbers that were still there. It was no doubt Japanese. Was this actually an abandoned station? She lit up the rails. It was a one-sided platform, and beyond the rails there was nothing but a grassy cliff. Further in there was a ticket booth and a small station-like building. She thought that she saw a dim light beyond it. As her eyes got used to the dark, she could finally differentiate between the dimly lit cloudy sky and the lights in her hands and the lights inside. There was something there, the station sign perhaps? Hisako walked by the ticket gate and directed her light to the other side. Darkness, or rather, the outside was so vast that the backlight couldn't reach it. That meant she could leave. There were no workers at the ticket booth. It'd be too scary if there were. She shook her head, went forward, and looked inside the station building through the broken window. There was no one inside. There was a mess, but it didn't look like there was anything significant there. It looked like it had been abandoned after a thorough move. Nothing more, nothing less. All that was left now was finding out what that light was. She had expected to find just a station sign, but what she actually found beyond the building, surprised her. It was a vending machine. Coffee, fruit, juice, sports drinks, green tea. For some reason, most were warm. And there were even brands she knew well. Hisako sighed in relief. Finally, she came across a piece of civilization she knew. At the same time, she became hungry and thirsty, and the puking had given her a sore throat and stomach. Additionally, it was also summer. The air around her was warm, and the tension had made her sweat a lot. She wanted to drink some water. She took out 100 yen from the wallet in her bag and put it in the machine. She pressed on the button for the mineral water, and it fell to the tray. Hisako stuck her hand in and felt the cord of the bottle. It was a standard European hard water. She opened it and brought it to her mouth. At that moment, she wondered what had happened to the car, to her caution from before. She didn't know what this place was. It could have been exactly like that train. There was no better time to question her senses than now. So why did she choose to drink something from here? Yeah, it is a little sketchy. She knew better than the usual person, that eating the food from a different world was an expression of willingness to become a bride of that world and to reject the old one. Before her throat could enjoy the water, she threw away the bottle and vomited again. With that, she was assaulted by a powerful dizziness and headache. She spat and tried to keep herself together. Then she looked at the vending machine. Whoa, it was no longer just that. It was a gathering of creeping vines on a stone wall. The leaves were all bigger than her arm, and she could see it clearly now, for it shone. It was white closer to blue. It was beautiful blue-hot flame casting light you would only see in places like nuclear reactors. It brought about destructive energy that didn't allow life. It propagated and diffused and spread maliciously. The plant bore fruit. Hisako unhesitantly looked at the gel-like fruit covered in a malicious blue and filthy red. One of them was right next to her feet, and its fruit juice was spread out on the granite-like floor she was standing on. She just ingested the juice of a fruit from a plant that was not of her world. She spit it out, though. Or did she? The surroundings no longer tried to hide their evil nature. The building was exactly the same as before. However, the base material had become granite. It was covered in the same cryptic hieroglyphs as she'd seen in the train, and it made her scream a little. The train was now all rusty and rotten, just like the interior of the first car was. It was like a metal ship that had washed ashore. It seemed to symbolize the defeat of the human mind or the victory of the evil lurking here. No way. Struggling to keep her footing, she looked for proof that she wasn't going insane. However, that hope was shattered when she saw her phone screen. It showed only static, a field of unintelligible black and white. No, 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 no! Everything besides her was going insane. No, even her own things were like this. How could she make sense of this? She couldn't even look at a mirror now. Though panicking again, she couldn't throw away her phones. They were her only weapon after all. She worked the phone as best she could. She even tried to do something on the other, almost dead phone. She wanted to connect to somebody, anybody. Contact button, up and down buttons, call button, no luck. She couldn't connect no matter how hard she tried, but that didn't stop her. A small bit of rationality she had left told her it was pointless, but she repeated it regardless, for she had nothing else. You're sleeping too long, Mamiya-san. He was calling Hisako every 20 minutes or so, but he had no luck with either of her phones. It was close to evening now, so it was best for him to just return by himself. Certain she wouldn't answer, he called the Me Deadlines phone. Having no luck there, he then tried the Me Connections, knowing it was pointless. Normally, there was a ringtone followed by an announcement that the target phone wasn't in service range, but there was nothing. No call sound, no voice, nothing. Curious, Yasunaga. Hello? Said that. There was no response. Is this Mamiya-san? It's me, Yasunaga Oribe. I'm done for the day, so can I go back? He said what he wanted. Suddenly, my, oh my, my, oh my, oh my. It appears I was right to give you the charm. It was a voice you shouldn't have heard there. Haruchan? Huh? That name is unfitting whenever I'm around, Nichan. Oh, sorry, Okami-sama. I mean, God, how did it connect to you anyway? With the wolf-killing incident, he found out that Haru Makishima's game wasn't just an act. He hadn't seen her act like that himself since that time, but Shikimochi might have. However, Yasunaga knew that this entity was someone to be revered and loved. Anyway, she was too poor to have a phone, so there was absolutely no way he could have called her. I'm not calling you. What a strange response. I simply used the charm I imbued with myself and gave you to make you a temporary mirror. You only hear me through that phone because it seems natural to you. The explanation was a bit convoluted, but he understood it. So it's something science can't explain, something to do with symbolism and meaning. You are smart as always, I see. Like that city dweller, I feel a slight bit of regret now. Anyway, hang up right now. Huh? But we wouldn't be able to talk then. I take it back, you're an idiot. Where did that come from? I'm saying that I'm not actually calling you and we can talk without the phone. Hang up already or you'll die. He understood that she was telling him he was in a bad situation and quickly hung up. I did. Well done. What did you mean I'd die? You can calm down now. I need an explanation. I'm not good at details. Please try. You called someone who is so far you cannot reach them, yes? Yes. He was confused by the so far you cannot reach them part, but he nodded. Hisaka's house wasn't far away, and phones didn't usually mind distance that much. It wasn't an international call or anything. A distant point and a close point happened to call each other at the same time. It created a triangle distorting in reverse. With 3 points, worlds that do not usually interact can create a boundary. It's quite the rude and sinister realm. Thus it summons the badges of Yomi. God's words were too hard even for him to understand, but he did remember that God had once been called Mujina, a badger. It's nothing like you, I assume? We are alike but different. They are creatures that were born out of human darkness through impure contracts, and went on to fall into true darkness. It could attack you through the sharpest edge of the boundary. Are you not glad you have me? He really didn't feel like he'd escaped some sort of danger. However, God's roundabout words were enough for him to learn a certain truth. A distant point and 2 points that were near. If standing on the triangle made by this was dangerous, it meant that Yasunaga was standing on it too. Were the 2 other points the phones Hisako had? Mamiya-san is that far away now? Indeed, that is as certain as the sea breeze is salty. Should a mountain god really make comparisons like that? The sashimi at Atami was delicious. Now's not the time to be a glutton, Haruchan. Where's Mamiya-san now? What did you mean when you said that physical laws don't work there? Do not call me that. It is distracting, but I'm impressed at how well you understood this. My mysteriousness as a god is wasted on you. That woman is in purgatory. That world wasn't in his vernacular, or that word wasn't in his vernacular. He instantly turned around. With an empty expression, Yasunaga walked up to a PC in the library and awakened it from his sleep. He turned on the browser, accessed the search site, and typed in purgatory. Since a ruin excavation book he wanted to read was being led to an American school, he spent his time here reading a technical guide and using a PC. As a result, he'd already come to understand computer interfaces, networks, the relevant base concepts, and how to use them. He looked at the search results and opened the purgatory entry on a dictionary. The realm between heaven and hell. Christianity? He talked into the inactive phone again. I did not have that god in mind, but yes, it is something along those lines. Such spaces in between realms are everywhere. To arrive to a god, people must pass mountains, darkness, and dreams. There are wastelands where fragments of dreams are akin to grass. Humans must pass them to face God. So Mamiya-san is dying? That is not wrong, but not quite right. Did she get in an accident? No, she was brought to Purgatory alive and well. Why did that happen? Being spirited away was not uncommon in the past. We're not in the past. If there are gods who fool and kidnap mankind, they must be fearful and hide by mingling with human settlements. This one in particular is... So you know what hit her. Are you saying you would save her, Nichan? Yes, I'm indebted to her. Will you extol me? I'll bring you lots of souvenirs. Excellent. Use the machine. By doing so, you should be able to send a voice to her without using the paths of this land. Because someone's listening to us? What a scary man you are. I just understand things well. He could always bring himself ahead of the rest with his inhuman thought processes. This might have been due to the Higuchi blood in his veins. They were known to be good at government planning and tactics. Though he was not as extreme as Chikamochi, the 3-legged crow and servant of God, Yasunaga was no doubt a genius. Then this is really... Indeed, you have to contact her through a country without God. Suddenly, the phone next door ear rang, and Hisako, face wet with tears and snot, stared at the screen in shock. She could read the text. She looked around and found the anomalies were nowhere in sight. Hisako wouldn't let that fool her, though. This place was definitely unnatural. Or perhaps she herself was going insane. It was impossible to assert that the paranormal was just a delusion. More importantly, the phone. It was an email. It was from an unregistered free mail address. Upon seeing the name before the @ mark, Yasunaga, she gasped loudly. With shaking fingers, she opened the email. I pray you aren't filtering this domain. I assume you aren't, since the phone you gave me didn't have that setting. Due to certain circumstances, I found out that you might be in danger, so I'm emailing you to confirm. You are in a place you shouldn't be. Everything you see is dangerous. Don't do much, and please send me more details. I'll consider how to deal with it. Use the address given here. It should work. There was a copy-paste of a very long URL there. She tried to open it, but couldn't access it because the phone wasn't in service range. Then how did I get the email? As she thought about that, she got another one. I forgot to mention I'm sending this mail from a foreign server. It seems that only networks in Japan are blocked. That's why you cannot access the local phone services and networks. The site I linked is foreign. Please open it using the internet. If you don't know how to do that, please wait while I give you instructions. Hisako was dumbfounded. Had he lied that he didn't know how to use a phone? It actually felt that he knew computers and networks even better than her. Anyway, she knew that Japanese phone networks were separate services provided by the carriers, so that was the reason why she couldn't access it. Hisako chose the URL again and picked the option to open it in the browser. Success! It was a very crude, simple website. There were some Cyrillic letters at the top, probably an explanation, along with the text form and a button which was probably used to send the text. A web chat page? That meant she had to enter her nickname. She tried to input her own name, and realized that she couldn't remember it. Oh. She's here. Yasunaka had already logged in as Yasu and repeatedly pressed the refresh button. Upon seeing the new person join, he raised his voice. But the person who logged in was called OKEQ. Was it a glitch? Did the phone display it wrong? But at that moment... Help! Oh gosh. A short yet heavy message was displayed. What kind of place are you in? Kisaragi Station. I looked it up, it doesn't seem to exist. It probably just looks like a station. Don't let it fool you. I know. I can feel that I'm in a weird place. I sometimes can't even tell what's real or not. It's bad. I can't even remember my name. That is bad. He talked to God about this while preparing, and that got him a warning from the librarian. They would take the phone away if he used it again. He had to be careful about using it, but he more or less already found out what he had to do. It was bad because of the warnings that God had given him. Don't drink or eat anything in the other world. Don't forget your own name. Don't turn around if chased. You are Hisako Mamiya, son. Hisako Mamiya. Say it and remember it. Hisako Mamiya. Yeah, that's me, thanks. Don't eat anything. I almost ate a weird fruit. What? Are you okay? I spat it out. Was that good enough? What if just a bit of it was fatal? But then again, she didn't actually accept it. Maybe it was just fine. It was probably a question of mentality. Tell me what Kisaragi Station is like. It took a while for her to respond. There's a single set of rails, no workers, it's all dark and cloudy. There's a vending machine, the train stop nearby. I got here by going to Tokyo. After I bought some water at the vending machine and almost drank it before spitting it out, everything changed and became like this warped, weird temple. Then I started feeling sick. It happened on the train too. It became a mess, and I saw weird text. Apparently these places change depending on the observer. It's the concepts that matter. Why do you know so much about this? I'll tell you once you're back. We need to focus on the situation. You're in purgatory. All places where God exists can be escaped. Huh? Where's Virgil? Where's Beatrice? And going to God means dying, doesn't it? He didn't understand what she was talking about, so he looked it up. It was from a classical work called Divine Comedy. He was impressed by how knowledgeable she was. I'll lead you through it. It's possible to save you if I can get there. Trust me. I don't really get it, but okay. You also might be just imagining that you don't feel so good. Try lighting a fire to feel better. I don't have a lighter, and I can handle this for now. Okay, now, I had this idea. If purgatory is between heaven and hell, shouldn't they be the previous or the latter stations? I see, good idea, but I don't know from where I got on this Hell-Heaven tour. I don't know the details, but it did seem like things would get worse if you kept riding. Yeah, but did it seem like things would get worse if you kept riding? It did. It might have been a train to hell. Then maybe you should try heading back to the previous station. The train doesn't work, right? Right, but I don't want to ride it again anyway. Can you follow the rails on foot? Can I really trust you? I'm not 100% certain. Tell me if there's any new info. Alright, I just saw the moon. Just so you know, it's 6 in the evening here. You're joking. Is the flow time different there? That's not what I mean. This is bad. What is? Please respond. Oh no. She really did see the moon. There was a space in the clouds covering the sky, and a reddish moon peeked through it. It was in its first quarter, a half moon. Though it wasn't bright, it had a powerful presence and seemed to shine over all the platform. She just realized. The strange unknown structure she couldn't see in the darkness had been right on top of the station. For a moment, it seemed to be a light hanging strangely high. But that was no light source. It was a giant lens that gathered the moonlight. There was also metal mirrors around, and they all occasionally released a light akin to the moon's. They were probably there to help the lens gather moonlight through focused reflection. It moved despite there being no wind. The more immediate problem was the fact that the unnatural device focused the moonlight into a ray of light that created a red dot on Hisaku's chest. The redness filled her with fear, but then she jumped back feeling that she was being targeted on purpose. It was like a moment from a movie where a vile sniper trained their laser sight on the protagonist. The light didn't follow Hisako. Instead, it went away from her and the platform to target the train. Suddenly, like a bit of ice melting under a laser, the train lost its false appearance. The new-looking train instantly became a crumbling, rusty wreck. and then it finally exposed its true form. She instinctively knew that the new appearance wasn't harmless to the sane world of men she knew. That moonlight was no light of judgment, and the moon was not the moon she knew. It was the evil moon of a different realm. Its power was to return things to their true forms. That was the light and the device. For a moment below the pillar supporting the lens, she thought she saw a silhouette, which was either a small human or a gigantic amphibian. She no longer was in a situation where eyes could be trusted. What the heck is that? The train had begun to melt into a soft, transparent, yet still metallic material. It had chemifluorescence, the anomalous quality of the fruits. If Hisako had any knowledge in developmental biology, she would have compared it to a cellular change that happened during differentiation, which took place during the start of life or regeneration. Her impression of this event was more straightforward. It looked like a pupa going through metamorphosis. What was once a train was now standing. It was an extremely large beast. From head to toe, it had become a transparent body that could support its own immense flesh and bone. The white, slimy skin quickly became a red-purple colored jelloid that spread throughout. Breaking through the bark-like material and spewing lots of mucus, the object grew branches, legs with multiple joints. They were small compared to its body, but they had the numbers. It grew more and more of these legs. And once it was done with that, the creature looked like a screw pine she'd seen in Okinawa. It felt like a malicious, heretical caricature of the strange tree that grew countless roots. That probably wasn't the best comparison. The thing was by no means a peaceful plant. This was a vile, gluttonous animal that lived only to eat and reproduce. Partially on reflex, she recorded a summary of her thoughts on her phone. Even though the extreme fear and shock had numbed her mind, she was well trained enough to pull that off. She looked down and saw the phone vibrate just before it stopped working. It had run out of battery. Hisako could no longer get help. She had to handle this herself. Her goal was to return, and for that she had to go to God, which required her to move and run away from the grayish pillar of flesh with comb-like teeth. It was even puking something. After looking at it, she realized something. With the train gone, she could see something that she'd lost sight of before. It was a station sign. It glowed white like a lamp, and she could see the hiragana for Kisaragi from there just fine. She jumped off the platform, landed with all her limbs, and began running, ignoring the pain of the impact. She could hear thuds behind her as something soft was puked out on the floor, but she couldn't observe it. Following the rail, running on the rocks, she hurried to the station sign. It looked like this. Kisaragi and then Katasu in darkness. Looking at how the train went, she'd come from Katasu and traveled toward darkness. However, this left her confused. Katasu, Kisaragi, darkness? What was that? Did Katasu refer to Nino Katasukuni? The world in Japanese myth had the heavens, Takamagahara, the netherworld, Yomi no Kuni, and this world, Ashirana Katsukuni. Nino Katsukuni, also known as Ninokuni, had been the place where Izanagi and Susanoo lived. Due to various circumstances, such as the root part of it, it ended up being considered to be the same place as Yomi no Kuni. The afterlife, basically, hell. Was Katasu hell? But if that was the case, darkness would be heaven, but she barely knew any myths where darkness was good. Which is it? She began running and couldn't stop now. Where did she have to head? She was attacked by the unpleasant feeling again. Of course she would be. The sign had now displayed those disgusting hieroglyphs. She had no idea what it meant now, and behind her... Oh dear. The monster had begun to seem beautiful and lovable to her. Uh-oh. That was a mother beyond all bonds and blood, and an incarnation of motherhood that had manifested here in this world. Ooh. All that she birthed would be consumed by her, and then birthed again. It was an honor and a joy. The anomaly, still covered in transparent gelatin, had somehow retained a human form. It was summoning Hisako, welcoming her. She would embrace the child with those wet hands and summon her into reincarnation and the greatest pleasures. She almost felt like crying. She wanted to take off the clothing and be purified by the Great Mother, embraced by all. Even so, she could bear it. She successfully endured it. After all, she knew. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. Her discovery made her laugh in a strained, maddened manner. The puzzle she'd had in her head had finally been solved. Yasunagi-kun's hint was necessary, but its direction was off. Purgatory, Rengoku, Lang. She wasn't Dante, but Randolph Carter. Kisaragi meant moonlike. That meant that it was a place to gather and use power from the distant moon of illusion. The moon's power had been prepared to open up a route into the great darkness. It was the pinnacle of the madness involved in connecting to a device from a universe that rejected the laws of physics. It looked like this simply because she was Japanese and a modern person. The place was basically a kind of hell wrapped in Hisako's imagination. But, if you recognize that, if you acknowledge the Necronomicon, Carter, Dreamland, Lang Plateau, Shub Nugarath, Cthulhu, if you realize that the many mystery stories left by H.P. Lovecraft could manifest as a real threat, then didn't that mean this world was on the verge of ending? I hope the story's on the verge of ending. This is so long, as if that mattered to her. Hisako was an adult. She knew how to pick out things that were good for her and turn a blind eye to the contradictions and survive in a way that was in no way fair. The Hisako who knew the truth could ignore the fear it inspired to deal with the immediate threat. It barely made sense, but it made her pull herself together. She had no reason to hesitate any longer. Her destination wasn't Nino Katsukuni, it was something hidden in there. Katatsu. Cat Station. Ahaha, what a joke. As far as she knew, this was a challenge. It was a place where few could find themselves. She didn't even know if normal people could live there. However, if the something that had led her here, she had a good guess about its identity, had made such a human-like trap, then getting there should be easy. After all, the rules had already been written. But that was when she was assaulted by the worst spell of dizziness and nausea yet. It nearly brought her to her knees. If she staggered around like this, everyone would catch her. She now understood why Yasunaga had suggested she light a fire, but she wasn't in a situation where she could do it. Would the other phone burn if she shorted its battery? What a pointless thought. The phone had a role to fill. In that case, she would use her minimal mythical knowledge to create a small fire. She opened her notepad, clenched the ball pen linked to it, and stuck it against the granite floor at the edge of the stone with wriggling marks of evil all over it. The metallic ball instantly broke, but she didn't mind as long as it lasted long enough for her to finish. It would hold meaning even if made like this, surely. Line, corner, line, corner. Sorry, line, corner, line, line, corner, line. Watching the transparent creature approaching her, she felt her intellect become overwhelmed by fear and panic, but she still pressed on. This is how it was supposed to look like. A warp pentagram, or a tree-like symbol of divinity. In the middle of it, there was a figure akin to an eye or a flame. It wasn't a powerful weapon. If there was something better, this world would have surely been saved from the fear of Cthulhu by now. It would surely hold no meaning against the Great Mother approaching her. But there were still its children, the unnatural heir here, and the entity controlling the moon lens. It could maybe work on them. She finished carving the Elder Sign. The next moment, the world screamed. It didn't actually deal much damage to this realm itself. However, even a simple needle could bring severe pain if used well. It was especially damaging to those who didn't expect such retaliation. With a rending sound, things changed. First, it was the air. Perhaps not permanently, but it felt purified. Second, those chasing her writhed and faltered. The Great Mother behind them shook as if enraged and continued birthing more children. Now was the time. Now was the time to run. She sprinted. I'm going to Katatsu Station. The second phone's about to run out of battery too, and I won't be able to contact you again. I trust you. Hisako had logged in after OKEQ had logged out because the first phone's battery had run out. After that message, no amount of refreshing the web chat page added anything new. A while later, Hisako was logged out. No longer having any business with the empty chat page, Yasunaga closed the browser. After that, he placed the phone next to his ear. That's probably where she's going. Understood, leave the rest to me. With that, he just closed the phone. As if to escape the library and advancing in his direction with furrowed eyebrows, Yasunaga logged off the PC and left. There was nothing more he could do besides believe in them. I'm counting on you, God. Hisako ran. She ran along the train tracks, illuminated by a sinister moonlight. Her legs often got caught on the railroad ties, and she fell a lot. Her high heels were broken, but being barefooted would have made things even harder. Her feet hurt so much that she could barely feel her toes. She couldn't keep the tears from her eyes. Eventually, all she could do was stagger forward, but even so, she couldn't stop. She had an urge to look back. She actually thought she had to. For all she knew, she might have lost them completely. However, she knew better than the average person that turning around in such situations was a big mistake. Thus, she just continued walking. She wished to return to the boy who was worried sick about her. She would give him her thanks as well as make him some eccentric yet delicious food. With just that in mind, she continued walking. This might have continued for an hour or two, maybe even longer. She continued walking, looking at only her legs. She walked. Hello, who are you? You leave me alone. If someone hadn't called out to her, she wouldn't have even realized that she already reached her destination. She was now at a shabby, dark station, much like the previous one. The sign there said Katatsu. This place was... Who are you? Called once again, she looked to her left. There was a concrete platform within reach. And on it, there was a child. A silhouette of a child with a cheap-looking kimono and bobbed hair. The child's voice was androgynous and not very articulate. The moon was hidden now, and the only sources of light were the sky and the sign. Hisako couldn't see the child's face. Oh, why are you here? You're not supposed to come here. The voice was innocent, but a bit strict and harsh too. Oh, I'll let you out. Come with me. Can you get up? The child gave Hisako a hand. She, however, really stared at it. It was so close yet she couldn't see past the hand's shadow. A dark child. Could it be that... I see you are wise, journalist. The sudden girlish voice made both Hisako and the child turn his face to its source. There was a strange looking figure near the ticket gate. She was clad in bandages and looked about 16 or 17. We have someone bad here. Hurry, you have to run. One soul per day, now to bind, the mist rise away again. With that, Hisako instantly knew who she had to trust. That was a song that Shami Serizawa had taught her back in Fujiyoshi. Ignoring the child, she ran to the platform, climbed up, and hid behind the girl. You have done well. Yasunaga-kun's silence. Oh, you resist? That was no longer a child's voice. It wasn't even human. The child had been replaced by a vortex of darkness that looked somewhat humanoid. However, that wasn't true darkness. It was a chaos that consumed all, even light. For a moment, Hisako thought that she'd seen 3 shining spots on its face, but she instantly looked away. If this thing wanted it, it could have prevented her from doing that. It could even crush her sanity completely. That was just how big of a deal this thing was. This is my servant. It is agreed that you cannot lay a hand on her, no? Oh, you lie. It will become truth. Will you get in my way every time? There will not be a next time. After all, back there, you were a weak god that had to follow my every whim. Pathetically weak god that looked down on even by the wolves and the snake. Simply cannot defy me. Okay, yet I rose again. Please don't return here to stay on your mountain. Of course. I will allow it. I appreciate it. Ooh, perhaps I should take Yudai Hashimoto instead. Sako almost stopped breathing. Why would that name come up here? There was no reason to ask. She knew it all. Please, no. Then come. How selfish. Do you think lives are cheap? That was Hisako's line. However, she didn't have the guts to talk back against the dark, crawling chaos. Why her? She's a cursed soul that had been tortured and torn apart in the mist of dreams countless times. That makes her a fitting meal for darkness. Oh. I intended to reach her with my darkness, but I let her escape in Kisaragi. Have him instead. The unnerving girl turned around to the ticket gates. It was hard to see, but there was a silhouette there. It was a very old man. But why did it seem like there was a dagger in his throat? This is a truly wicked soul. He will surely be useful to you. Probably. But it's not a fair exchange. What? Let's do this. You like darkness, don't you? I will show you lots of it from now on. That's not what we agreed on. She should not become my sustenance, and she can at least be my entertainment. Let her limit the shortness of her strand of fate and struggle to prolong it. A god is supposed to test people, right, Oni-chan? She couldn't say anything back. Know your place. I understand. Let's go, woman. The girl dragged her, past the old man who struggled for breath, and out of the station, into a dark road. As Yasunaga stood alone on the campus without purpose, the cell phone he'd borrowed rang. It made him jump. It was a call from a public phone. Could it be that... Hello? It's me, Hisako Mamiya. Are you okay? Where are you? I guess I'm okay. I'm not missing a limb or anything, but man, I'm dead tired. I'm not even sure how they escaped. The darkness void thing wasn't, like, agreeing to the deal, but then Haru just kind of, like, walked out anyway, so that's a little strange. Where are you, at home? In Okutama. Huh? I just got dropped onto this mountain. Your god told me to handle the rest by myself. Don't you think she's a bit harsh? Well, maybe, but she's a good god. Looks like it. I didn't have to wander for long until I found a human settlement. I'll come back in a taxi. A taxi? Won't that cost a lot? I don't want to ride trains right now. I understand. Anyway, I'll come to you. Please rest where it's safe. Huh? 3 hours later, a taxi approached the Okutama bench Hisako Mamiya had been idling on. Mamiya-san! The young man who got off instantly ran over to her. He really did come. Her whisper made her realize just how tired she was. However, there were no signs of all the falling and vomiting she did in Kisaragi Station. Her high heels were okay too, and the ball pen wasn't broken. Her cell phones were still charged as well. I'm glad you're okay. Honestly, I still can't believe all this. By this, she meant the experience itself, and the fact that she'd escaped from that being. But I don't think I could have made it back if not for you. Thanks, Yasunaga Oribe-kun. It's nothing. By the way, do you have money? I took a taxi from the station to here, and I'm completely broke now. She sighed, remembering that the boy was the definition of penniless. It was a valid problem to have, but it didn't make her feel good. She staggered a bit as she got up, but it was only due to her walk down the mountain and mental fatigue. Perhaps she'd even lost several of her sanity points. The thing had said that it would show her even more darkness. She wanted to brush it off as a joke, like it only said that to medicine ridicule her. That was the kind of being it was. Anyway, let's go back. Yes, how though? The driver says he's okay with both the station and the direct route. I'm not sure I want to ride a train. I can stay on guard for you. The words caught Hisako off guard. I guess that's fine then? Well, trains are less stressful anyway, right? What's wrong? She was just having a moment of weakness. This boy was really dependable, but he really wasn't her type. Hell, he was underage too, and a lot younger than her. It'd be a crime. Oh, by the way, can you come to Yasumizu soon? Why? Our god said that she did a lot to help you, and that she needs to meet you. The charm she'd given me isn't quite enough, apparently, so she'll do some more on that front, too. That reminded Hisako that she'd become her follower. Do you have any weird rituals? No, not anymore. I really am interested in your village. Can you let me look into it a bit more? I'm actually a qualified curator. That reminds me, about the college recommendation. Oh, there was that too. Are you okay with going to Shikoku by car? You could leave tomorrow evening after you finish your schedule. I'm fine with that. Then I guess that's when I'll point you to, you'll go straight to Shikoku, then return straight to Fujiyoshi? That'd be easier for you, right? You know what? I'll drive you there myself. It's a bit cramped, but I have a car. Huh? You'd be doing way too much for me. Don't worry. I'll spend to do the shopping I couldn't do today anyway. And she didn't want to be alone. Then I guess I'll accept your offer. By the way. I'm thinking of unraveling the history of my homeland with my own hands. So I thought that maybe I could do it together with you. Interesting. Well, it just sounds like we'll be working together for a while. Yasunaga began to have trouble putting his thoughts into words, which made Chisako tilt her head. What's wrong? God also mentioned another thing. To complete the conversion, you could marry into... Nothing. Don't worry about it. I asked her to prepare another method. It's okay. Seeing the boy turn beet red, she felt that he really was still a child. She found it charming, and it was a perfectly healthy impression to have. Anyway, let's go. The driver's waiting. Yeah. Okutama, I heard that there's a good ramen place near the station, so maybe we should get something there. Pro knows her stuff, I guess, but I don't have any money. You're my savior. I'll treat you. But I can't really refuse at this point, can I? Then sure, I'll have some. They got in the taxi, and as Chisako listened to Yasunaga give directions to the driver, she finally relaxed. She was resolved to feed him her own food tomorrow. That sentiment was even stronger than it was this afternoon, but that was because he'd save her life surely. They'd then go to Shikoku. It wouldn't be just a drive, but a real trip. And then they'd visit his home. What a packed schedule. She was excited, tense, and strangely uneasy about it. I hope nothing happens. She'd always yearned to experience something blatantly occult and paranormal, but now she knew it was something to enjoy from a distance. Hisako suddenly wanted to see that informant, Haruaki Fusaishi, again. That insolent man had gone through a mystery she hadn't, and she felt she could bond with him over their strange experiences. It was high time she made an appointment with him, so she resolved to make one at all costs. By the way, Mamiya-san, as the driver began taking them to the station, Yasunaga took something out and gave it to Hisako. What, a photo? Yes, this thing was found in a ruin in Yasumizu. Apparently it was left behind by human sacrifices. I've never seen a culture like this anywhere else, so I think it would be a good subject to research. Mamiya-san? This isn't your god, is it? No, it's a god that no longer exists. Oh, I see. She felt like she'd just seen a whole new face of the world. The beast mask with the 3 red eyes carved on it made Hisako think of the darkness looming ahead of her, causing her to feel lethargic and look up at the taxi ceiling. Okay, and then that's how it ends. Gosh, alright, that was probably the most interesting story, but it was also the longest. And I don't know if the story saves, like, partway through, so when I commit to starting a story, I feel like I just have to finish it. So congrats, you get a more than hour-long video. And if the last 2 stories are also that long, then you get them as well. So, yeah, while that one was probably the best, just in terms of, like, the subject matter and that it was actual paranormal stuff happening, the darkness, the train, monster, all that was pretty cool. There was a lot of setup, and then it just took a long time to get through, and my voice is exhausted. But hopefully somebody out there is enjoying this, and is looking forward to the last 2 that we have to do, because I've already committed to doing it at this point. But either way, let me know your thoughts, and I will see you all around for the next time, so till then, peace out.